Bitcon came out in October 2022, and as it stands now, there are 0 critic and 0 audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Let's check it out. Bitcon opens with an old-timey commercial that tries to act as an introduction to Bitcoin. Talks about why decentralized money is important, and I would say it does an adequate job at that. But from a movie perspective, as far as hooking people in, getting them to watch the film, I would say this does a very bad job. No one likes to be lectured to. Bitcon sells itself as an action movie, but any excitement doesn't happen until about 10 minutes in, when we get this cut to a guy being choked out. This should be the real start of the movie. This slow pan up of the camera makes you think, whoa, what's going on here? Is this guy going to be okay? What are these guys doing? We get to meet the bad guys in the middle of a heist led by Calvin, a man who looks suspiciously like Jordan Peterson. And this little sequence gives all the explanation needed for what Bitcoin is. There's this one line where a henchman says, "I don't give a fuck what Bitcoin is. All I know is you can trade it for money." And that's about the depth this movie is going to get into. Bitcoin has some value. All this stuff about governments inflating money or the cryptography wars in the 90s, that's not a concern for most people. Normal people don't care about the history of Bitcoin. They just know the market price. Well, same goes for the criminals in Calvin's gang. Then we get to meet our main character and narrator, Ty, played by Noah Anderson. He has a criminal past. We learn he's just got out of jail, but now Ty is just trying to do the right thing and work a straight job. However, this woman, this bitch, no, she's not a bitch, sorry, Jess, one of the thieves, she calls HR at Ty's work and reveals he's got a criminal record, and the metal factory, or wherever he works, has to let him go. I don't think they ever explain what Ty's criminal record is entirely, unless he's guilty of rape. Many jobs will take you with some kind of minor offenses on record. Maybe the movie's making some social commentary about criminal justice, but at any rate, he's down on his luck, needs money, lives with his older father and young brother, basically taking care of both of them. Father is abusive, but nothing too over the top. This movie is rated PG-13, but Ty takes the job to launder the thieves' newly acquired Bitcoin. As Ty explains, he does this laundering by putting the Bitcoin through mixers, and gives a pretty accurate explanation.
It's like if 50 people put 1,000 pennies in a bag, shook it up, and then everyone took out a random group of pennies.
Assuming that the person tracking you is less dedicated than you, your Bitcoin, when tumbled, swapped, coin-joined, would be very difficult to prove it's yours, making it anonymous money. However, that is a big assumption, as you never know who or what is tracking you. A roommate said to me once, using privacy services is like Frodo putting on the ring in Lord of the Rings. You become invisible to most people, but the all-powerful eye in Mordor, that eye never sleeps. Anyway, I expected to watch Bitcon and put together a list of like 50 things they got wrong about Bitcoin. But to be honest, the movie does okay. There's not anything super embarrassing. At one point, we see Ty mining Bitcoin in a storage locker, which, not realistic, but that's really the worst thing. And the resulting image is pretty cool. At one other point, someone says HODL stands for hold on for dear life. But our story progresses. Ty mixes the Bitcoin for Calvin's crew, and then unfortunately for Ty, the Bitcoin goes missing overnight, and everybody's looking for it. That's the real plot of the movie. They obviously assume Ty had something to do with it and torture him for information. Remember, this movie is PG-13, but the bad guys cut off one of Ty's toes. All of the characters are pretty one-dimensional, but Calvin, the bad guy, is interesting because it's as if he's living in an R-rated movie and everyone else is not aware. Using a vacuum to seal them up. It's a pretty disturbing visual. One of the victims they make a point to show is still alive, still breathing, just before they vacuum seal him, which is just, I don't know, to me is way more violent than any gun battle. So after cutting off a toe, they believe Ty and saying he doesn't know what happened and release him with the condition that now it's up to him to figure out where the Bitcoin went. So Ty's running around with his foot all messed up to all these different places, looking for leads. You got these good old boy mechanic guys he meets up with that, again, torture him, this time with a forklift. One of the henchmen, the camera seems to linger on. And I looked it up and was amazed to see this was Mark from American Movie. If you want an actual movie recommendation, you have to watch this documentary, American Movie. When this guy Mark was younger, he was an aspiring filmmaker in Wisconsin. And from 1995 to 97, a film crew followed him while he tried to finance and film an independent horror movie. It's weird, it's funny, shows what life was like for a true starving artist in Wisconsin, trying to manage business, film, friendship, alcoholism. I don't know what journey Mark's life has been for him to show up here playing a henchman in Bitcon, but honestly, I'm glad he's still alive and working. Ty meets more colorful characters, a crew led by Dougie, and what's interesting to me is these criminals aren't bagging up drugs or guns, although that's definitely part of the movie. Dougie's crew are packaging sneakers. That's what they're selling. The good old boy mechanics were dealing in stolen farm equipment. It's unusual items. And I'm not sure if the creators of the film were explicitly thinking this, but it's a statement about value. People use things because they are useful. They want things because they are wanted. The sneaker market has little to do with how much they protect your feet, right? A market might seem overpriced and unnecessary to you, but if enough people use them, if enough people believe they have value, it doesn't really matter what you think. People continue to predict Bitcoin's death and craft these long arguments, but if enough people believe, it doesn't really matter what your little chart says. So I thought that this was interesting. Make no mistake, Bitcon is not a deep movie, but there were some creative choices made with these seemingly minor characters. The big reveal comes, and we find out that the stolen Bitcoin has actually been stolen by someone in Calvin's crew, Jess. It was an inside job. And she did this because at some point in the past, Calvin killed her brother. No flashback or explanation. That's just what they say. So Jess takes the money, and while most generic movies like this, you would assume she and Ty might hook up after they start working together. No, there's none of that. There's no romance.
Well, technically, I have a machine to help me.
Ooh, now you're speaking my language.
Big confrontation at the storage units. Filming at a storage unit building, probably easy place to film. Jess gets away with the money. For some unexplained reason, Ty's dad becomes a good person again. Police say case closed. As an epilogue, Ty ends up with a square job at the storage unit place. It's all good. But in the final scene of the movie, we find out Jess left Ty some of the Bitcoin in one of the storage units. He hears a car horn, turns around, and the movie ends. The credits roll. So potentially, a sequel to Bitcon is possible. Bad movies get sequels all the time, and there's actually enough there to maybe keep the story going. Some of the crazies from Calvin's crew are still alive. It hasn't really been explained what Jess left Ty exactly, and there's enough minor characters that I'm sure any of them could return to play a bigger role again. If they did make a Bitcon 2, I would hope it would be more Bitcoin focused, because despite the name of this movie, it really could have been anything these people were all chasing after. The director explicitly said this story could have been done with a briefcase full of cash or diamonds. If you're using Bitcoin, why not lean into that idea? You could do some interesting things with Bitcoin storage, right? Maybe they have the seed phrase for the wallet, the 12 words, and maybe 3 words are missing. They have to find 3 words and go on this scavenger hunt to get them. Someone has the wrong word, someone has the right word. That might be cool. Multi-sig, where you need 2 people to access the Bitcoin. Can you trust the other signer? Just do something. If you wanted, you could pick an actual moment in time, a specific week where the Bitcoin price went crazy up or down. Just the worst thing a movie can be is boring. And I think that's the biggest crime here. The movie doesn't go to any extremes. It just plays it so mid. If you're going to be low budget, be low budget. If you're going to be funny, be funny. If you're going to have action, right, make sure there's real action. With Bitcoin, there are no rules. There's no Bitcoin company to check with or get permission from. You could just have Satoshi Nakamoto be in the movie. Be an actual character helping Jess and Ty. Have Satoshi played by John Lovitz. It doesn't matter. I would watch that. But as it exists, this movie is not great. If you're desperate for a Bitcoin movie, desperate for something to put on the TV when you got a female friend over, desperate because nothing else going on in your life, then yeah, I would recommend. Otherwise, I'd say you could skip this. If you're a true Bitcoin degenerate, maybe purchase the movie in hopes that in some small way you move the needle for Bitcoin adoption. Thanks for watching.